So just looking back at the people you've dated in the past, do you notice how you were more attracted to certain types of people, while for others, you just can't stand them? When we enter into a relationship, we unconsciously take on a role or a persona. And depending on what that role is, we might struggle a little bit more when it comes to relationships. So in this video, I want to talk about those roles, those persona that we have. They're called attachment styles. Before we start, I gotta clarify something. Yes, these attachment styles develop in your childhood, but for the sake of this video, I'm not going to talk about all the childhood stuff. What I am going to focus on is how these attachment styles affect our adult relationships. I also think that it's important that you learn about these attachment styles, or at least know your own attachment styles. And it's not to restrict your relationship to certain categories, nor does it mean you're stuck with one attachment style forever. That's not always the case. As you become better and better at relationships, your attachment style can change. With that said, let's get to it. There's one type of secure attachment and three types of insecure attachment: anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. Everybody can categorize themselves into at least one of these. Number one, secure attachment. Nothing's wrong with you. You have a positive view of yourself and others. When it comes to relationships, you tend to have open and honest relationships. You feel comfortable talking to your partner about pretty much everything, and you allow your partner the freedom to be themselves. Now, let's not confuse security with perfection. Even though you have a secure attachment style, you're still going to have good days and bad days. You're still going to have conflict, just like every other couple. But what sets you apart is your emotional intelligence. You're self-aware, and you know how to communicate effectively to resolve conflict in a healthy way. Number two, we have the anxious attachment style. You have a negative view of yourself, but positive view of others. Because of this, you're more drawn to people who you think you can rescue. You often romanticize relationships because for you, it's easier to form a fantasy than to face reality. If you have an anxious attachment style, you don't enjoy being single because you hate the feeling of being alone. But when you are in a relationship, you can be quite insecure. You're unsure if your partner loves you and you're afraid that they're going to leave you. You have a lot of communication issues, not because you don't communicate, but because you overanalyze everything that the other person says. Your relationships tend to fluctuate between really high and really low, and sometimes you can mistake this turbulence for passion. From my research, a lot of women are more likely to be in this category. Number three, avoidant attachment style. You have a positive view of yourself, but negative view of others. You don't trust people easily. When it comes to relationships, you tend to be very fun and charismatic at the beginning stages of a relationship, but you tend to lose interest rather quickly. People would describe you as emotionally distant because you have a difficult time opening up to other people. You like to use sarcasm and humor to deflect and avoid talking about your feelings. Overall, you're very self-sufficient and independent. You're well capable of taking care of yourself. And this is also the reason why you have a difficult time making close friends and experience true intimacy. A lot of men identify themselves in this category. Last but not least, we have number four, disorganized attachment style. This is a difficult one. You have a negative view of both yourself and others. So just think about it. If you have a negative view of yourself, then you don't want to be alone, right? But if you also have a negative view of others, then you don't want to be in a relationship either. So there's an internal conflict between wanting intimacy and resisting it. The way it plays out in relationship is that you would do everything in your power to be in a relationship. But the moment it gets too real, you sabotage the relationship. And very often, this type of relationship can turn abusive. And here's the thing, even though you know that it's abusive, you tend to stay anyways because you think other people suck. So it's better the devil you know. Alright, I'm sure at this point you know which category or categories you identify with. So if you don't have a secure attachment style and you have one of these three insecure attachment styles, what can you do about it? My first recommendation is to see a therapist to work through all of the trauma you have in the past. Or maybe you don't know which category you fall into, so they can help you identify it and allow you the safe space to explore all of your emotions and how you can express those emotions in a healthy way. The second thing that you can do is to pay attention to what triggers your negative emotions in relationships. And it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could be your relationships with friends and family. Once you can identify your triggers, you can then control how you express those emotions. Another thing that you can do is to notice if you're not letting people in because you're afraid of the impact they might have on you. Avoiding close relationships so that you don't have to think about your attachment styles doesn't really make it better. The longer you keep avoiding your trauma, the worse it gets, and it keeps you isolated. That's not healthy for your mind. The last thing I would recommend is medication. SSRIs or SNRIs, also known as antidepressants, have been used to help with depression and anxiety that may exist as a result of an unhealthy attachment style. I hope this video gives you a bit of insight and helps you become more self-aware. Please understand that it's okay if you don't have a secure attachment style. With the right support and motivation, you can still have healthy relationships. That's it for this video. I'm curious to know which attachment style do you resonate with and how has it affected your relationships? Comment down below. Until next time, stay curious.